Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and I am here with the amazing Denise DeGaulle. Hey, Denise.
Hi, Jean. I am the amazing Denise Stiegel. Dun, dun, dun. You are the wonderful and talented Jean Gallagher. I'm singing today. I don't know. I'm in a great mood.
And I'm not going to sing because you'll be glad I didn't.
Hmm.
Uh, so, what is our topic for today?
So today we are going to talk about the hidden root of weight gain, dare I say fat gain, and fatigue after 40.
Mhm.
Okay, now most women, when they're thinking, okay, we don't think that building muscle or strength training has anything to do with menopause and midlife. Menopause and
Mhm.
midlife kind of go together, first of all, right? But what if I told you, and you know this, that symptoms that frustrate most women in this stage, the weight gain, the insomnia, the mood swings, even some of the anxiety that women feel in midlife and menopause with estrogen decreasing can actually be eased with intentional strength-based workouts.
Mm. Interesting. And these are messages that they're coming out more now, but it wasn't a popular topic 5 or 10 years ago.
Now, and I think because many of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, we really got stuck in the cardio phase. And I'm the first to admit, like, that was what I always did. I have an elliptical machine, I have a treadmill, I love to run. I still run, but I know now that strength training has completely changed my body. I like the way
Mhm.
it looks. For a while there, I wasn't so happy with it. I was looking a little doughy. But
Doughy.
also
I call it fluffy. I like doughy too.
little doughy, like, ooh. Pillsbury Doughboy. I live in Minnesota. The Pillsbury Doughboy is right up the street from me here. Um, but strength training, absolutely, when it comes to midlife, is a game changer. Why?
Mhm.
As we are naturally losing estrogen, we're naturally losing muscle mass as well. And we're like, oh, okay. And especially during the I can't talk today, perimenopause phase. Now, I want to just rewind and explain that a little bit. Menopause is is a 1 day event.
Mhm.
Perimenopause is what most of us are when we start struggling with the hormone issues and all of the symptoms that I mentioned earlier, plus many others, is really perimenopause. Menopause is that 12th month anniversary from the last time you had a period. So menopause is 1 day. You wake up
Mhm.
the next day and you're postmenopausal. So really it's, we call it menopause, and that's really the whole kit and caboodle from beginning to till end, really. So why this is important is as estrogen is dropping, we start to notice all of these things. Why? Estrogen does so much more than regulate your menstrual cycle. It's more than, for pregnancy and childbirth and all of those things that we really associate estrogen and progesterone and testosterone with, right? It also plays a vital role in muscle strength,
Mhm.
repair, and recovery.
Mm.
Who knew?
Right.
Right?
And
We don't.
it's interesting. I think that it's, well, not interesting, but it's important to know the whys around it because there's been a lot of discussion over the last few years about reintegrating HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and and the positives of the negatives. But I don't know that really we talk about why. And I'm not here to say HRT is needed or not needed, but it is that conversation around it, that how important these aspects are for our continued health and strength in these
Mhm.
next stages.
And I love that conversation. I love having that conversation. I personally am on bioidentical hormone therapy. I will be on this for the rest of my life. Why? Because I know all the benefits that estrogen has in my body, right? It stabilizes blood sugar on top of everything else we've talked about. It supports bone health, it supports your heart health. It supports, it also supports your brain health. Well, heck, I want to make sure when I'm 80, I still have all of those things,
Mhm.
right? So hormone replacement, obviously it's a conversation to have with your doctor at some point.
Mhm.
There is a conversation, if you're X amount of years past your last period, maybe it's not the thing to do. Maybe it is. That's again a conversation. But I think it's really important to have this conversation because think about this. If we're if our estrogen is declining, and by the time we're 50, estrogen, if you look at a woman, think of a woman's body, and like, we're full to the brim when we're 30, right? By the time we're 50, estrogen is like at our waist. Like it's
Mm.
like waist level. So we've lost that much. By the time we're 80, estrogen levels are down by our ankles.
Toenails.
Toenails, exactly. Well, because estrogen has
That's a
all
great
of these,
visual,
like,
though.
right. And I do have a slide that I can share that somehow we can share on
Mhm.
in the show notes because I think it's really important for women to understand um all of the things that estrogen does. But specifically when we're talking about muscle loss, right? As we get older, we start to lose that muscle. The challenge also is it's harder to regain muscle. So the sooner we start paying attention and start doing our muscle training, our
Mhm.
strength training, the better. So some of the other things like why this matters, so many reasons, right? Things we just talked about. Less muscle mass means you have a slower metabolism. What does
Mhm.
slower metabolism do? Weight gain, fat gain, less energy, higher fat storage, and as I mentioned before, increased risk of bone loss. And this is a new one that I haven't talked about, insulin resistance.
Mhm.
Wow. So estrogen equals muscle with muscle strength. Muscle equals, a better metabolism, more energy, less fat, better bone health, and better insulin um, resistance. Wow, that's a lot. And that's all about muscle.
Yeah, it's so important to understand why we need to do things because as a society we become very sedentary and it's what's really challenging here. Let's get real. If you are in an 8 to 5 job and you're in a sitting job, it takes a lot of mental and physical oomph to incorporate these things into your daily activities with everything else that's going on.
It absolutely does. But if you know the reason why you're doing it, you're not.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing is these strength training sessions don't have to be very long. And at this stage, we're talking to women who are not doing any kind of strength training. So
Mhm.
they need to understand why they need to do that, how to begin. And my recommendation is always, if you've not been doing weight training, any kind of strength training, is to find a personal trainer local to you who you can work with, one who understands the midlife menopausal woman's body. So don't go to somebody who's 25. They're not going to get you and they're going to give you exercises that are probably inappropriate for you at this time. Um, and then once you've had a few sessions with that person, because you want to make sure that you are doing the right exercises, you want to have the right form. Because if you are
Form is
lifting
everything.
weights right in a poor form, it just is a disaster. It's just a recipe for injury, and we certainly don't want that because that
Mhm.
puts us back, and then we think, oh, I can't do this. This isn't for me. Um, and what they have found is 2 to 3 times a week is really all it takes. And obviously, if people haven't started, they're going to start smaller with smaller weights, right? But it really is about lifting heavier weights.
Mhm.
And I know my mom is so cute. She walks around with her 3 pound weights, and that's great. Whatever. She's 83. But what if she started walking around with 5 pound weights,
Mhm.
right? And think about this: if she had started years ago. Now she's like I said, she's 83. She comes from um a time when women didn't exercise. I mean, she did get into the aerobics thing in the 80s, but that's really it. And that kind of went away after a while. Think about if she started weight training, strength training back when she was 50.
Hmm.
What weights she could lift. Like
Right.
she has trouble lifting a bag of bird seed out of the back of her car.
Mhm.
And a lot of things that she used to be able to do, just because she hadn't lost muscle strength at that point. There's a lot of things she can't do at 83 that she could do at 63 and maybe even at 73, maybe.
Mhm.
But when we think about life and longevity, whether it's, we always think it's the how many years we live, but I really believe it's more the quality of life that we're living while we're
Right.
living, right? And muscle and strength training gives us the resilience to thrive, really the resilience that we need to thrive through menopause, through midlife. And again, the day after your menopausal anniversary, you're postmenopausal for the rest of your life. Your estrogen is decreasing for the rest of your life. So we
Mhm.
kind of need to fight that now. Start fighting that now.
Yeah, I agree with you too. In my 50s, I was much more aerobic focused. I was riding my bicycle a lot and doing those things because it was easier for me, right?
Mhm.
And now that I'm north of 60, what's changed is the thought of what am I going to look like in the next 20 to 30 years? And that seemed to become more real to me. And what do I want you already said it, quality of life. What do I want my quality of life to be over the next 25 to 30 years versus what, you see other people that are in their 80s and 90s and their quality of life is sometimes reflective of what they did over the last 20 to 30 years. And that for me was a game changer. And I finally listened to my children and started
Yay,
to,
Megan.
yeah, right? Both of them started to, Shannon back squatted 495 pounds the other day, no big deal.
Whoa.
I know. And then that was 55 pounds less than his PR, but these children. Um, blows my mind. Anyways, but the strength training piece is the part that it took me a really long time to get on board, and now I can't imagine because we were lifting a sander out of the back of the Michael and we're lifting a sander out of the back of the floor sander out of the back of the car. And I'm like, I lifted my half. So, and I can feel it. And it takes when you start something like this, especially when you're older, it feels like you're not getting anywhere. It's like slugging through the mud, and you have to stick with it because after, 6 months, which seems like a terrible long time, but it really isn't. And, reflecting 20 years forward, things start to things start to change.
Absolutely. And it's always about, small incremental changes, small incremental successes.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, start small, and you'll keep going. The other reason to start small, those words were just squished together. The other reason to start small is you will prevent injury,
Hmm.
and really getting sore. I mean, too many times that I'll go to a gym and you see somebody who's who's obviously very new at this, and they're picking up weights that are way too heavy, and the next day they're so sore that they can barely move. So
Oh, that
that's
was me
not
the
what
other day.
we're going for. That's really not what we're going for. Yes, you want to feel that you had a workout,
Hmm.
but you don't want to be in pain. Pain is not good.
No,
Discomfort, a little discomfort goes a long way.
discomfort's okay. Discomfort's okay. So the idea here is gain muscle, do strength training, lift heavy things.
Yes, that is our
Thank
whole message for today. Muscle is king or queen in our case.
thank you so much, Denise.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Stegall. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows each show and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I'm excited to have you all here. And if you're listening to us on a podcast platform and you'd like to see our shining faces, hop on over to YouTube as well, because we'll be there too. And I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Arlene Santiago. And Arlene is a functional movement expert, and we're going to talk about lots of things that have to do with movement and get into that. So Arlene, welcome.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Before we get started, give everybody a little bit of information on your background and what got you to where you are today, and then we can get into exactly what you do.
Sure. Arlene Santiago. I'm a functional movement and mindset expert. And basically, what I do for my job is I help people that are in chronic pain, have limited mobility, balance issues, and I help them get relief in a matter of minutes by using my pain reframe method. And yeah, it's really different. But I'm a trainer. I'm a personal trainer by trade, and I just got really into the brain and how it communicates to the body, and I thought it was pretty fascinating. So that's why I do what I do this. But that I just started. I've been a trainer since about 2013, and I started this chronic pain bit before COVID. I believe in 2018.
Mm-hmm. Chronic pain is so challenging and debilitating, and it's such an area that I think that people don't know that they should be reaching out for resources. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. We do typically we go to the doctor, and of course we should go to the doctor. And they tell us, here's a pill, here's a shot, here. What else do they? Here, have some get surgery. And
Mm-hmm.
what if somebody doesn't want the shot, the pill, or the surgery? What options do they have if they don't want to be poked and prodded? There's things out there, and I don't think a lot of people realize that there is.
And when you think of somebody, think about, I'm going to go get a personal trainer. The people that are having these conversations are not people that are in chronic pain or have balance issues. They're the people that are already active and they want to be better at the activity or that they're doing, or they're getting ready to do a brand new activity and they're working their way up for that. But if you're in a situation where you do have some balance issues, or you're in constant or often pain, you're not thinking, I need a personal trainer.
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah, you're right. No, the active people are people that want to be really active. They do get the trainers for performance reasons or for strength reasons. But as you age, that population needs a lot of help. Those boomers out there, and they 1 out of 4 people over the age of 65 fall, and it happens. A lot of it happens because they stopped moving. After retirement, they're not as active anymore. And when you're not doing a lot, your muscles just tend to get weaker and atrophy, and you need to move. You want to live, you need to be able to move and do the things that you love, so you can enjoy the rest of your golden years having fun, enjoying your
It's
grandkids if you have them.
right. It's easy not to do anything. It's
It is
easy to
easy.
be sedentary. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years goes by and you look back and you think, oh, what happened? And in it, the rebuild process, or the mentally, it's hard to think of the ability to rebuild, but then physically, that's also part as well, because there are not a lot of resources or people doing what you're doing and how important your work is for the general public.
Yeah, I really do believe that older adults need to be taken care of more. There's a ton of them. And you're right, right after, we're sitting to after a couple years, there, where did the time go and what happened to my
Hmm.
body is like, well, if you're at rest, your body's at rest, it's gonna, want to stay at rest. And that's the path of least resistance that, that happens. But we all know that we need to move. And the
Hmm.
thing that happens that, maybe the older adult will reconsider, like if they fell,
Hmm.
they're like, oh, well, maybe I should do something about it. Oh, I
Right.
broke something. Maybe oh, I have this pain. I've had it for a long time. I don't know what it is. The doctor just wants to give me, pills or whatever. And you guys, if pills is the way to go for you, that is, but if you're looking for something else and you don't want the pills, then you got to try to look elsewhere and, maybe just dig a little
Hmm.
to, other people, ask other people who they know. And, if they know anything about alternative medicine or just something, a holistic modality, something different, so that person can move better.
Hmm. When you're so let's talk a little bit about what happens from the neck up when when you're in that lack of mobility, or it hurts to move, and I'm older, it's not going to get any better, but it's going to continue to decline. That's really such a mind, can't, I'm not going to tell you what I think it is, but it's really such a mind warp, because you're just mentally feeling so deficient.
Right. So are you talking about the brain, or you said the
Yeah,
neck up?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
was like,
The neck
okay, is
up.
she
Like
talking
I'm
about the neck?
no, no, sorry. From
Okay.
your head, all your thoughts that are, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm getting older. This is the ticket that I punched, and I'll just do what I can and enjoy as much as I can, or it's always going to hurt.
Mhm. There could be a mental block there. So if we have that belief that this is just the way things are, well, then you're going to be stuck in that. That's what
Hmm.
you're going to think, and that's what that loop is going to get, inside your head, and you'll probably just say it over again. I'm old. This is just the way it works. This is just the way it is. This is the way my body is, and I feel like that's like you're like defeating yourself already. It's like, okay, well, this
Hmm.
is, yeah, you're just resigned to the fact that that's just the way it is. And it's not. A lot of
Hmm.
it is how it, how we think, right? Because you're in that negative thought process. And if you choose to change it, it will change, right? It
Mm.
may not change right away, but if you work towards, oh, well, I can't do this now, I can't do this yet, but
Mm.
maybe a week from now, I'll be a little bit better.
Hmm.
In my opinion, whether or not it's your thought pattern or your body pattern, the way you move, it will get better as long as you are thinking about it and not letting your bad habits or what is just automatically programmed take over.
Mm.
So for example, I had a client today, and she's an older woman, and she said we're working on going down the stairs. She's like, I don't know why I can't go down the last two steps. So I'm like, let's let's go to the kitchen. Let's sit down. What's going on, right? And we worked on what emotions were trapped within her body.
Hmm.
We worked on the emotions, and insecurity came up. And she's like, yeah, I feel really insecure about going down the stairs. And I'm like, I wonder why. So we talked about it, and part of my job is, not my job, well, it is my job, but I love doing it, is to coach that person and ask them questions like, well, why do you think that is?
Mm,
Why do you think that is? Well, I fell down. Of course yes, you fell down. But what happened? Then your mind gets stuck in the past, right? But
mm,
if our mind it stays in the past, we're not going to move forward. We have to look forward to the future. So here I am, like, okay, well, that was the past. You had, but let's look at what happened since then. You're
mm,
stronger. Your balance is better. You've been able to do things that you haven't thought that you thought you were able not to do ever.
mm,
It was like a thorn in your side, but eventually you move past it, you move past the fear. So it's just putting that person's perspective, like lining it up, like, hey, like let me show you all the good stuff that you've done. There's no reason to be in the past in that anxiety when you've done so much. You've grown by leaps and bounds since then. And then
mm.
it's like, okay, we talk, we chat for about 5-7 minutes, get back on the stair. She goes down the stairs, no problem. It's all in my head.
Interesting. Right. Yeah, exactly. And it is that reminder of look at all the reminder that yes, you're doing more than you were before because you do get stuck in the past or those habits come back. Those thought habits come back.
They do. And if you allow them to take over, they will. But you have to say,
Mhm.
no, 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 that's not true. What's that? Wayne Dwyer,
Dwyer. Mhm,
He would say, you have to ask yourself, is that true? Is it true?
mhm,
Is it true? Maybe it was true back then, but maybe it's not true now,
mhm.
so you can move forward. Yeah.
When you're working with somebody with chronic pain, how do you assess and how is that I wouldn't call it a don't know if you call it a treatment plan or your movement plan or how does that work with chronic pain?
All right. So people always tell me, like, okay, well, let's say it hurts in my knee. Right. So, and I will have them go through an evaluation similar to one of a personal trainer. Right. So
Mhm,
I'm checking the mobility, I'm checking their strength and, things like that throughout, in the beginning of the process. And they'll let me know what's going on. So when they say knee, I'm like, okay, what's the most likely source of the knee pain? I'm going to go above and below that joint to check out what's going on. Where is the source of this person's pain? Is it in the hips or is it in the ankles? Right. And sometimes it's, I'll do some muscle testing, neuromuscle testing for a few minutes to determine where the source of this issue is. And sometimes it's there, right there. It's blatantly obvious. I can see it when they're walking.
mhm,
Um, but sometimes it's not. I will go above and below the joint. And then if it's not, I'm like, hey, and tell me, and they'll fill out a form. Tell me your history. Have you been in a car accident? Where did you have surgery? And then I'll look at those areas too, because your brain and your body remember all the trauma that you've gone through. And that affects
mm,
how you think, physical and mental. It affects how you think and it affects how you move. So we go back to the patterns of, hey, I hurt my knee, I fell down, or I had knee surgery. I'm not walking the way I want to. My knee hurts. Even though I
mm,
went through physical therapy, I went to the chiropractor and it still hurts. What's going on? So they will, they'll look at the physical therapist and the chiropractor, they will look where around the knee, just the hips and ankles, they will do that too. But again, as I said earlier, your brain remembers things. And it could, just because the pain is in the knee, it doesn't, it could be coming from the shoulder, it could be coming from the
mhm,
neck, and you have no idea. So here's an example. Recently, I had a person on the massage table, and she was complaining about her sciatica. And when you think about sciatica, and for those that don't know, it's a nerve thing, goes down from
Mhm.
the top of your, like around your hip area, and maybe in your lower back, going down. It goes, that shooting pain goes down the leg. And I'm not like as necessary. I'm not a doctor, but I just know what it is because people see me with it, right? But so if somebody has it, I'm going to, again, so it's around the lower back, it's around the hip. So I'm automatically looking around there.
Mhm.
But where did it actually come from? Her pain of that nerve it came from her shoulder, doing a certain rotation of the shoulder. And every time she did a certain rotation of the shoulder, she zinged down her leg.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, well, this is the source of the pain. Let's figure out what we need to do here. So after a few minutes of working with her, okay, and she kept on moving her shoulder a certain way because it was zinging down their leg, and after a while
Mhm.
it just didn't zing anymore, because
Isn't that
again,
interesting?
brain remembers patterns, and
Hmm.
it kept on zinging, and I'm like, you know what, that's the issue. Let's just pay attention to that movement right now. And after a few minutes it was gone. She didn't have it.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah. It's not saying it won't come back, because sciatica is just it's what it
Yeah.
is. But
Right.
it can, what I do, it can help you. Well, if you're in a car and if you start like hurting after 20 minutes, maybe we can prolong that to 60 minutes so you can be in the car for a longer period of time. Or if you're standing and it starts to flare up and it takes only 10 minutes, maybe we can get you to an hour,
Mhm.
to help, so it just helps, so you can help support your body, and your brain knows that you are able to do certain movements without the pain.
Mm.
Does that
Our
make
bodies are
sense? I
so,
hope it makes sense.
yeah,
I know it's
no,
a
it
lot.
does. It does. And our bodies are so amazing. And the piece that I think gets missed is your example was great, because here you're looking at the positioning of, or the movement in the shoulder is actually changing the alignment of the body enough to zing the sciatic nerve. And but without looking at the body as a whole and how somebody's moving, you might miss that thought process or that action. And it also helps people feel like they're in charge more.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a victim of their pain. They're actually in a position, and it's empowering to be able to say, oh, this hurts again, I have to watch my shoulder.
Right. Because your body will tend to like want to go back to that movement pattern. That person needs to
Hmm.
be aware of it.
Hmm.
So, another example would be, the brain remembers the trauma again. So I had
Hmm.
this lady who was in one of my exercise classes, and she was just having a hard time getting up and down from the chair, which is a basic exercise, but sometimes it can be difficult for some older
Hmm.
adults. And after about 20 minutes, she was able to raise her arms like straight up in the air. But before that, she wasn't.
Mm.
It was stuck right about here. And the reason why, again, brain remembers trauma. She had fallen down the stairs at that time 26 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't lift her arms past her ears. Isn't that? And then she's still like this. Her arms are still up in the air, and she's able to reach for, certain things above her head now at the grocery store or in the cabinet. Can you imagine your
Hmm.
life for 26 years not able to
Wow.
use your arms up?
Hmm.
Well, it definitely changes your life if you can't do it, right?
Yeah, and
So
your quality of life, without a doubt.
yeah, yeah,
Let's talk about balance a little bit, because
sure.
balance, as you get older, balance is incredibly important. And your ability to balance affects your ability to walk, but it also affects your abilities to stand safely, to walk across the yard, but getting dressed and doing so many things. how do you address the balance issues, and what does that look like?
Similar to what I had said before, that neuromuscle
Hmm.
testing, that's what I'll do to figure, like, they'll show me, like, hey, like, I'll put them in like a balanced position. Here, hold it for a certain, can you hold it? Let's see how long you can hold it for. So I had
Hmm.
somebody recently this weekend, she could hold a position, her balance position, for about 3 seconds. And I'm like, okay, first off, I'm going to look at the feet, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot, let me tell my story first. All right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to like to start.
Okay.
After, by the end of the session, she was able to get in those balance stances for about 30 seconds. And I was like, I'm not
Hmm. Wow.
recording anymore because, who's going to look at someone standing still for 30 seconds?
That's such a huge difference between 3 seconds and 30 seconds.
Yeah, there's a big difference. So that was, about an hour of me working, and just like I was with this client, I was going back. She had knee pain, she had foot pain, she had all these different things. So, I was working, trying to work on everything. But with regards to balance, and this is just my opinion,
Hmm.
and everybody's going to be different, but we
Hmm.
need to look at the feet,
Hmm.
right? That's the foundation of our body. And a lot of times when we are walking and we have these thick sole shoes, and some of us need those thick soles for all the
Hmm.
support, and some of us don't necessarily need to. But what I'm finding when I'm in my classes, my exercise classes, if you have a thick sole and you are trying to balance, you're going to have a more difficult time than if you were to take off your shoes and
Hmm.
socks, go on the floor, because your foot is actually spreading, right? Your foot is actually spreading versus being narrow in the shoe. So
Hmm.
I like in my classes to articulate, hey, let's go heel to toe, heel ball two. Go through that articulation in your foot, because the more motion you have on the base of your body, it's just going to get better as you move up your body. So
Hmm.
I do start at the feet, and there's a lot of, when I work with people, there's a lot of things that end up like start or that are in the feet. It's like, let's just move your toes, or let's just move your ankle in a certain position, and all of a sudden your balance gets better
Interesting.
in a
And
minute.
now in a lot of the work that you're talking about, the stories that you're talking about is in person, but you
Yes,
also do online work as well.
I do. I teach online classes for older adults. We work on the strength, the balance, the endurance. What am I? And we do the mobility and the stretching as
Hmm.
well. We work on a lot. It's called Strength and Mobility for Life, and it's a general class. But what's different is that I do incorporate all those different things, and people notice, after a little while, like I always say, give it a month, and but do the things that I'm asking you to do, and you'll notice how much better you feel, because I am going to get in those nooks and crannies with regards to the mobility, and let's work on that hip mobility so your lower back starts to feel better, right?
Mm.
Let's work on the mobility of, your knee. It doesn't just go forward. Your knee just doesn't jet forward and hinge. It also kind of rotates side to side in a sense too. And you need to you need to make all those you need to do all those movements to help
Mhm.
support your joints and your body move better, more efficiently.
In the classes, what does it look like? So if so people are listening here and they're thinking, oh, because I'm thinking these things right now. So I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. So other people are probably thinking them,
Sure.
oh, my mom could use this. My mom has arthritis in her back. And
Mhm.
so walking can be challenging. And so what do the classes look like um, if they're already challenged with movement?
Mhm.
Is it how does that work?
So I start out in the chair, and you can stay in the chair the entire time, but we do stand up as well. And so
Hmm.
I always say to the people in class, you're going to do what you can, start where you are. Don't compare yourself to everybody else in the class, because they've probably been with me for a long time, you
Hmm.
know? So You do what you can. You don't need to start off with weights. You can, if you want to use them, if you don't have any weights, use a can, use water bottles. That's fine. And that's it. So if you, and I will show you, if you're in a chair, this is how you do it. If you want to stand up, this is how you do it. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, stand up and do this. So everybody's at a different, at a different level, but they're able to do it. I had one lady, yes, the other day, because I use the towel. I use a
Mhm.
towel for resistance. And that thing, I was like, that looks so innocent that it would be so easy, but it is so hard to use the towel. And I had one lady last week's like, look at my arms. These are from Arlene's exercises, and you see her. I mean, I believe she's in her 50s, but she just joined the class. She had an injury.
Mhm.
She's younger, but she had an injury, but she's like, oh, well, you go through all the motions and I
Mhm.
need this. Right. So let's think about, I mean, I work with older adults. Let's think that's the boomer population, but think about the people in their 50s and maybe their late 40s that do have some things that bother them, and getting down on the floor and jumping around is just not their jam. We're not
Mhm.
jumping.
Mhm.
But we are running and doing jumping jacks and all these sort of kicks and stuff in our chair. So you're still getting a
Mhm.
cardio portion of it. And you're not jumping, so it's still low impact.
Mm. In what age group do you find is the most common that you're seeing?
Oh, I would say 65 and over.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot. I have some people in their late 80s as
Mhm.
well. But you know what's really awesome is when you can see that you can see those people that have been exercising with you, and they can get down on the floor and get up with no problem.
Mm.
That's a big deal.
That's huge. It's huge. Yeah, really huge. And what would you think is the hardest thing for people to overcome? Not physically, maybe the mental piece as well of I think I really should be getting help, but they're having some challenges coming to terms with reaching out or you know what, it's not gonna do any good. I'm already where I'm at. I'm too old to make it a difference. Or do you see any of these conversations happening?
I do. And if again, it's up to the person. I don't like to, try to convince them because they're going to be in their own mind and this is what they think. Right. But the thing, eventually and hopefully they will look at other people that are active around their age and just be like, you know what? I want to be there. And there needs to be some type of motivation. They have to have a motivation to live. They have to have a motivation to do better. And that comes from the families, the supportive families, really like, hey, do you want to try? Or there are some like daughters out there, they're just like, mom, you're going. You have to go.
Yeah.
The older adult might just need a little push.
Mhm.
But the thing is about like in person or online, you need to be able to socialize.
Mm.
Older adults get so lonely
Mhm.
because their kids are older and maybe they live by themselves and they don't see their grandchildren, or they just maybe they don't have any grandchildren, but it's just them, right?
Mhm.
So you need a friend, at least one, but it'd be great if you were doing something together. So a lot of the people that are in class, they socialize, right? And in my online class, I mean, even though we have people from other states, majority of us are in the Chicagoland area. So I make it a point for us to get together quarterly so they can meet each other.
Oh, really nice.
And so we go out to lunch or brunch, and it's been really healthy for them, and then they become friends. So then
Mhm.
it's just it branches off into great friendships as well.
And you're creating community.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody needs
Big
community.
deal. You have to have a community. And not just your family, other people that, you can't talk to your family about everything. Sometimes you need to gripe, and those other ladies or gentlemen, you can talk to them because they're probably going through something similar.
Yeah. So for the older people, I'm thinking the people that are, about in their 70s and their 80s.
Hmm.
Um, can you talk about progression and realistically time frame? This is not a quick fix.
Hmm.
This is a process, and nothing worthwhile is easy, and easy sometimes means it takes time, right? But can you give a progression of what it's like when you very first start with somebody, and that I don't even know if this is possible to answer, so I'm just going to wing it
Hmm.
here. Can you give us an idea of what that progression would be for an older adult from when they start, and some expectations that they should have through the process?
Through like as a training or as a class?
Well, maybe a little bit of both.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
well, a lot of times the people come in because, the doctor said or their family said they need to do it, and so they're there. And sometimes they're not they can barely get out of the chair, at
Hmm.
first. But I always say, you just, do what you can. If you can only do 5 and I'm doing 10, that's okay. That's where you're starting. And as you go, maybe next week you can try to do 6 and try to
Hmm.
to push it a little bit more, push it a little bit more until it just, you'll notice after a little bit of time, that, within that month, like, oh, I feel stronger. I started off at 5. Now I
Hmm.
can do 10 by the end of the session, which is, depending on where, it could anywhere be from 4 to 6 weeks.
Mm.
So yeah, and then after that, you just work on everything, right? If you can't start with weights, that's okay. You're going to tense up your arms, and then the muscle, and you're going to tense up that muscle where we're using it, and then you're building it that way. Like, let's
Hmm.
say you can't hold you don't have any dumbbells. You can't even hold cans, right? So then it would be, hold on. So you would maybe just bring your arms down, and then you would bring your hands would like clench, and as you
Hmm.
bring your arms up in a bicep curl, you are that bicep, you are squeezing it. And
Hmm.
maybe that's all you need to do right now. And the people in class and around you and myself, are encouraging, like, oh, it's okay. You're going to do what you can, and you're going to get better. And eventually it just gets better and better, and you'll notice how your balance in your stance like get better. So let's say the only balance stance you could do would be like a wide like maybe a foot away like your feet are like a foot away from each other, and that feels safe to you. And
Hmm.
eventually you're going to bring that outside, that one of the legs closer to the other foot, the one foot's coming closer to the other foot, and you'll notice how your balance gets better, because I'm going to challenge you all the time. I'm always challenging
Hmm.
you. So whether or not, like, let's say you're doing 10, 5 to 10 in the beginning, by the end of the sessions, I am like, you were going to do 15. If you can't do it, that's all right. But you're probably
Hmm.
doing more than you started with. And that's a plus, and you got
Hmm.
to look at that as a win, right? And not,
Mm.
because again, as I said before, all those other people have been there for a long time. And if you run your own race, and and you look back to where you started, you will be proud of yourself. And after a while, you start to get some confidence, like, oh, I can do
Mhm.
this. I and you'd be able to work on different types of um ground, like, i
Mhm.
can't i can't think like, let's say it's you're on the regular floor, but then you'll notice, because you've been working on certain muscles and certain balance things, you can go on the surface of the uneven surface of the dirt or the
Mhm.
grass, you
Mhm.
know
Right.
and so, I mean, for most of us, that's which is good enough. You know, you don't need to be hiking in the mountains unless you really want to, and that's a totally different plan. But
Yeah.
we all need to start somewhere.
Right. But I love this thought process that honestly showing up is the win.
Showing up. Yeah, you just have to show up, and people around you will cheer you on.
And
Mhm.
do the work. That's fantastic. And so now you are in Chicagoland. So if
Mhm.
somebody wants to meet with you in person, they can do that. Um, they can do that. But I love the fact that you're available online. How often do you do classes
I
online?
do classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30 to 10:30 Central. And I go month to month. Like, so
Hmm.
it's in the middle of the month right now. And so, I'll, like, 2 weeks before the end of this month, I'll start promoting the next month. And the person
Hmm.
can sign up for 1 month, or they can sign up for, 3 months. It's just depending on. And if you want to try it out just to see if it's, if it's something that you'd like to do, just reach out
Hmm.
to me.
Hmm. That's great. And so how do people find you?
ArleneSantiago.com. Simple.
Simple. Very simple.
ARLENE.
Very, very simple. So, if you had a word of encouragement for somebody that's thinking, well, I don't know whether my mom or my dad or me, maybe themselves, would be open for that, what's your word of encouragement, do you think?
You don't know until you try.
Mm.
You don't know what's on the other side of it. You just have to be open to change, um, or just trying. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But maybe there's something, if you don't like it, maybe there's something else that you can do to keep yourself active or your parents
Mm.
active.
I love it. Arlene, thank you. Thank you
You're
so much. Your work is so important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.